Kirilenko decides back to the NBA. What does all this mean to Al Jefferson, who in the West is most improved and USA looks awesome? It's all next on today's edition of Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. If the Pac-12 media didn't fire you up for the college football season, boom, 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 boom. Did Homo really send that tweet? Because if he did, that's awesome. Boom, 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 boom. Tip of the hat to 1280 The Zone. They nailed coverage from the media day. Boom, 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 boom. Back to hoops. How's everybody doing? Changed my routine a little bit. We'll see how this lasts. I'm getting up and working out, doing a little lifting and that stuff early in the morning. Hopefully that gets me a little more awake for tip-off. Not sure how that works when the kids start going back to school. I think you'll get back to having the sleepy me, but we'll see. Hope everyone's well. George Jefferson passed. He's up in a deluxe apartment in the sky. Loved that show when I was a kid. Different Strokes, Facts of Life, Jeffersons. I think I might have just sat there for like an hour and a half in a row straight. You know, it's funny. My parents take the high road now. Oh, we never let you watch TV. You know, and then I think about all the shows I know. I must have watched some TV. They didn't let me have video games. Actually, here's a funny little parenting note, and then I'll get into the show. So I grew up in a house where I was not allowed to have the Atari or the Intellivision, and so, you know, I just picked my friends based on who had it, of course. My wife kind of was in a similar family, so we had our kids and decided we'd do the same thing, that we didn't want to have. I know. Trust me, it gets to that point in the story where I kind of laugh myself. So we did the same thing. We're like, no video games. And then that's one summer, about 2 years ago, we're going to a bunch of barbecues at friends' houses, and suddenly realize that what we've done is created a total social misfit. Like, they'll go play outside for a while, but then when they all go in, when it gets dark or something, they all go to the Wii at the time, or whatever it is, and he didn't know how to play. And no, at the time, 7-year-old kid is ever about to go try something for the first time in front of all those friends. So we conceded. We did have fun, though. We could tell he's a good kid. He wouldn't say anything. So for Christmas that year, we wrapped up a bunch of Wii games and gave them to him. And then he kind of looked at us funny, like, I need the console. But he didn't want to be mean and say anything because he's too good a kid. I would have probably been like, I want the console. And finally, Mom's like, well, can't you just put it in a DVD player? And he's like, oh, Mom. So then the Wii was waiting for him downstairs. Speaking of that, it is his 10th birthday today. My little guy is double digits. Can't believe it. I remember holding him in the hospital the very first day. Sitting, talking to him, telling him about the life he was going to have. Wonder how many of those things I've actually fulfilled for him. I guess we'll see. All right, so enough of that sentimental stuff. Let's get to sports. I said it in that little drum thing, but I thought the Pac-12 coverage was great yesterday. And if Tom Homo really did send out that tweet that Scott Gerard retweeted of, I'd like to announce ... that is the most awesome tweet ever. I've always known I liked Homo, but that tells me all I ever have to know. The most telling tweet that came out of the entire Pac-12 media day was that somebody on the U of U staff kind of picked at two of the 1280 The Zone guys because they were wearing blue. So you're too good for the rivalry, but you can't get over it, is what I've come up with on that one. All right, I know, I just endeared myself to all the Ute fans. Smile, laugh, it's kind of semi-joke. Let's talk some more about Jazz rebuild. Boy, I'll tell you, the more research I do on Randy Foye, the guy was just a gunner. The Clippers want him to. I wonder if we're going to let him do that. He took 205 three-pointers from March 1st on. We took 400 as a team. He took 19 more three-pointers than anybody else in the league. Ryan Anderson, who shoots a ton, was next. So, I mean, he really was just an enormous gunner. And hitting 42% of them. And that's the question of whether we're going to let him do that, how we're willing to play, what are we willing to do, that I think is the next question. You know, when you look at what we're doing, I've always believed and I'll have to this is a brutal research project, but maybe I'll work on it. I've always believed that if you take your 8, 9 rotation, 10 rotation players, and you can get all of them to be above the league average in how they use a possession, you'll be great. And the research I've done on this generally tells me that you'll be one of the top 5 offensive teams in the NBA if you do this. And I'll have to do some more research on it. And the concept is to some extent, and particularly you'll be a very good playoff team, actually. Because what happens in an NBA game at some point in the process, on some nights, some other nights teams aren't good enough to do it, but they're going to take away options 1, 2, or 3. And particularly in the playoffs, they're taking options 1, 2, or 3. And when you get those options taken away and the ball gets swung to the next guy, if he's above average in using that possession, you're golden. And if it goes to the 5th guy and he's above average, you're golden. And if every moment of a game, everybody you have on the floor is above the league average, you're going to be a top 5 offensive team. Other than Watson and Tinsley right now, the Jazz have done that if Burks, Cantor, and Favors have a minuscule improvement. They were 0.9 last year. The league average is 0.91. Jazz were 9th in the NBA offensively last year. I'll have to look what other teams have done because it can't be just done in a bubble. But to me, I have to say there's a real chance this is a top 5 offensive team in the NBA next year. And then if they're a top 5 offensive team, it really comes back to the main point of what can they do defensively. And Marvin and Mo are better on-the-ball defenders than anyone the Jazz had last year. More time with Favors on the floor, they should be better. But they were 22nd in the NBA defensively. And frankly, until we get rid of the philosophy that we foul all the time, we'll never be good defensively. There was an incredible research project done. I'll have to find out who did it. I apologize. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but stream of conscious of what my brain is just takes me places. That I read while I was in Alaska about where does the defense actually dictate a game? In other words, looking at standard deviation and a bunch of really brainy stuff of where can you actually say defense impacts a game. And actually it was interesting. They have very little impact on pace of play. On some shooting percentage issues, it's very little. But one of the things that definitely is an impact defensively is how many fouls you commit. That if a team goes to the free throw line a lot and plays a team that doesn't foul very much, they don't go to the line. And if a team doesn't go to the line very much and they play a team that fouls a lot, they go to the line. Defense dictates that more than offense. The guy looked at basically, it's too brainy for me, basically looked at every stat and tried to figure out, does the offense impact it more or does the defense? Basically the concept was defense really win championships. Does defense really dictate a game? And in certain areas it does. And I'll do more on this coming up. We'll have plenty of time in dead of August. And this fouls is it. And until we stop fouling, it doesn't matter what we do defensively. But if we can get better, then and get to be a top 15 team, we're probably top 6. If we're top 5 offensively, top 15 defensively, we're probably top 6. And if we can get to top 10, we're top 4 in the West. Maybe even, really be a surprise team. We may not have the big gun to be that big a surprise. But, it's interesting to watch what happens here. The other note on this is with three-point shooting, does Al Jefferson get better? I think Hayward and Favors on the pick and roll and some of those things get better. We didn't run the pick and roll very much last year. We didn't run it very well. I think largely because we couldn't spread the floor. We can suddenly go small, slide Marvin to the 4, which he can play a little, right matchup. Go Marvin to the 4, play Hayward at the 3, Foy at the 2, Mo at the 1. With, I don't care what big, but let's go with Jefferson. Who are you leaving on the perimeter? You run it with Favors and Hayward on a pick and roll. Who are you leaving on the perimeter? There's a lot of things we can suddenly do offensively we haven't been able to do before. I wonder if it brings the pick and roll game back. And I also wonder what it does to Jefferson in the post. He obviously improved last year, particularly his passing. Didn't turn the ball over at all. It was incredible, historical. And the other note I would have is now he has shooters around him. Does he get more room? I didn't think he got overwhelmed by double teams last year. I've always felt Jefferson kills second-tier bigs and struggles on first-tier bigs, and first-tier bigs don't have to double team him. But maybe that'll change a little bit, and he'll get more space or something. I generally don't fundamentally believe that teammates change individuals' performances. I'll say that again. I don't fundamentally believe that teammates change individuals' performances. Just when it gets right down to it, that guy with the ball makes the play. He is who he is. LeBron, Durant, maybe some of those guys impact it, but not generally. So I think that's what's going to be interesting to see where we are. Kirilenko, I think, astutely suddenly realized if he spent another year in Europe that he was done at 31 years old. Sounds as though he's heading to Minnesota. Minnesota had some aspects of their team last year that were terrible, and they are fixing a lot of them. Even if Kirilenko and Brandon Roy don't give them a lot, and Dante Cunningham, who they just acquired yesterday, doesn't give them a lot, they're a lot better than what they were playing there, which I would say means Minnesota's vastly improved, and particularly if Rubio gets healthy. The new collective bargaining agreement does not allow the Jazz to sign and trade Andre Kirilenko because he did not play for the team last year. This has been a point of confusion this offseason. Some people like over at SLC Dunk and Andy Larson were on it, frankly, before I was. I actually had people in the know who were misinformed on it, and it kind of tells you how still sometimes pieces of the CBA are unknown. And so the Jazz actually will not get anything for Kirilenko if he goes and signs with Minnesota because he spent that year away from the team. And the Jazz are not going to pay Kirilenko $9 million a year. And I'm not sure I want to play Kirilenko $9 million a year for the next 2 years. So, time to probably part ways. He's still a great player. He still does a lot. He has not shown, obviously, the ability to stay healthy. Maybe a year of less basketball will help him. Podcast yesterday with Kevin Pelton, trying to get one done with Clippers play-by-play announcer Brian Seaman today. Make sure you tune into the Pelton podcast. It was pretty good. I did our Mythbusters on 2012 Olympic team versus Dream Team and who's more talented. We talked about most improved. I never asked him about the Hornets. They are clearly the most improved team. They make another big move if they end up with Robin Lopez on this deal. Austin Rivers, Eric Gordon, Anthony Davis, they're good. I don't think they're playoff ready yet, but they're good, and they're going to be very good. They've made huge strides. Our other most improved teams in the West, it was interesting. The Lakers is somewhat of a discussion. The Clippers have really added a lot of pieces, Grant Hill, Lamar Odom, and if they all come together, it helps them out a good deal. I don't think they have enormous losses in Mo Williams and Randy Foye, considering how they play, and if they play Bledsoe more. They should be a little bit better. So they were definitely improved. The feeling is Minnesota's improved, and the feeling is that the Warriors are improved along with the Jazz. And I tweeted this last night. It's intuitively obvious, but when you talk about teams improving, you have to look at them based on what they're replacing, not anything else, because what the Jazz have really done have added three players who Mo Williams, Marvin Williams, and Randy Foye aren't the kind that totally alter who you are, but when you replace C.J. Miles, Josh Howard, and the mix in that, then you are making improvement. I think Mo Williams, Devin Harris is a pretty equal swap. Mo's a better shooter, and the Jazz really believe he's a better defender. I mean, talking to people, the feeling is that the Jazz are going to be much better defensively with Mo and Marvin out on the perimeter, in guys, defending, and that'll keep Favors out of foul trouble and some other guys. Two other final notes here. I was going to talk about USA basketball, but we'll wait. USA basketball, they're just athletic. They're good. They're long. They look good yesterday. Two other notes. One, Chris Wallace of Memphis Grizzlies, general manager, just signed picked up Wayne Ellington in a trade. You don't care about that. And his comments were, we helped our 3-point shooting. He shot 32% last year from three. 32%. That means when C.J. Miles, who's in Cleveland today, signs with someone, they're going to talk about how they improve their 3-point shooting with him. Signing a guy who shoots 32% from three does not improve your 3-point shooting. It just means he shoots them. We've got to have a differential here between guys that actually shoot the three and guys that actually make you a better 3-point shooting team. And the final one is if Minnesota pulls off this trade for Kirilenko, that gets them Kirilenko trading, Robin Lopez goes to the Hornets, they will give up on their former number 4 pick of the NBA draft in the same pick as Gordon Hayward, drafted Gordon Hayward, Wesley Johnson. And they will have to give up a first-round draft pick to do it. So Johnson, a 4th pick, who is not good, is going to get traded to Phoenix along with the number 1. Johnson fits into my concerns of 4-year college players that are older than all the rest of the players and whose careers surge late. In other words, Johnson wasn't much of a player in his first 2 years, transferred to Syracuse, took a year off. Now he's 2-3 years older than everyone else he's playing, and he's better than them. Those type of players should always be red flags. That is today's edition of Tip Off. Have a good one. Make sure you grab the podcast with Pelton.